We can clarify the role of wealth and substitution effects in labor supply even further by considering the constant elasticity of substitution utility function over consumption and leisure. In equation 9.24, we derive the leisure demand function from these tastes, and in equation 9.25, we derive from that the labor supply function. We again set the per week leisure endowment to 60, and we begin by setting rho in the utility function equal to 0. We know that when we set rho equal to 0, we're really assuming Cobb-Douglas utility functions, because when rho approaches 0, the CES utility function turns into the Cobb-Douglas utility function. It's then not surprising that the resulting labor supply curve looks exactly as it did in panel B, where we use the Cobb-Douglas utility function. When we set rho equal to minus 0.5, on the other hand, we get an upward sloping labor supply curve. This is because rho equal to minus 0.5 implies an elasticity of substitution of 2, which means that the substitution effect will now be relatively large. A large substitution effect means that the effect that causes workers to work more as the wage goes up is the one that dominates, thus the upward sloping labor supply curve. When we set rho equal to 0.5, on the other hand, we get a downward sloping labor supply curve. This is because rho equal to 0.5 implies a relatively small elasticity of substitution of just 2/3. As a result, the substitution effect, the effect that would tend to make workers work more as the wage goes up, is relatively small compared to the wealth effect that causes workers to work less as the wage goes up. The wealth effect therefore dominates, causing the downward slope in the labor supply curve. For completeness, we should mention that in panel C, we varied the alpha parameter across the three labor supply curves in order to ensure that they all intersect at the same wage and thus make the prettiest possible picture. Regardless of that, however, the basic underlying message is clear. Substitution effects cause labor supply curves to slope up. Wealth effects cause them to slope down. Which one dominates will determine which way the labor supply curve slopes, at least so long as leisure is not an inferior good. Within the family of constant elasticity of substitution utility functions, the Cobb-Douglas case is once again a borderline case, just as it was for cross-price demand curves in graph 9.10. This is because for Cobb-Douglas tastes, the wealth effect and the substitution effect exactly offset one another, and thus result in a perfectly vertical labor supply curve.